The button hath been hit.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the 4th episode of the 23rd Atlantic Fringe Festival Talk Show. Not like borderline insane. Eating out of the palm of my hands. Everybody, YouTube audience at home, get yourself an audience. It's great. It's a good energy boost. My name is Kevin Kindred. I am the chair of the Atlantic Fringe Festival. I do this talk show to expose some of the shows and give them a chance to promote themselves, give you at home the chance to learn a little bit about some of the shows. They asked me to do it because I don't have anything else useful to do during the festival. Everybody else is like busy, running the tech or doing useful things, and they just figured that I can talk, so that's what I'm in charge of. I'm also a Fringe Festival award winner. Yay! Many of you don't know that about me. How that came about, last year when we were writing up the awards, Tom Fitzgerald, who's the director of the festival, asked me to just write up the blurb saying who had won awards. And so I wrote it all up, and then as an in-joke between me and Tom, at the bottom I said, and the award for best announcement to turn off your cell phones goes to Kevin Kindred. And Tom, of course, this was happening at 3 a.m. after our closing party, and Tom did not read the press release that I had drafted, and immediately released it to the press. So the Chronicle Herald congratulated me on my award for the best announcement. So I like to think of myself as a seasoned Fringe artist now. What can we talk about? I was trying to catch up on the news today, although most of my day is spent doing festival stuff, but I try to not be totally out of touch. There was a story that I came across today on the CBC, maybe from a week ago, but apparently someone has done a study and figured out that the average single man changes his sheets 4 times a year.
No.
Okay, so you guys knew that was the proper response to that. Here's a little bit about me. I read that headline and was like, okay. I can tell because it's a headline that I'm supposed to think that's a bad thing. But I'm like not the neatest person. I'm not single, but I live on my own, which is, means I'm in charge of changing my own sheets. But I probably more than 4 times a year, but had to stop and figure out whether that was gross or not. So I'm now dating someone who is very neat and who I'm sure breaks into my apartment to change the sheets before me. And I say that, I think that literally happens. Because I was home today and needed to use toilet paper and remembered, I don't have toilet paper. I made a note last time not to buy toilet paper, and I looked and there was toilet paper. And I was like, what? How did that? So I think Anders, did you buy me toilet paper? And my boyfriend, ladies and gentlemen. So he's very neat and tidy. He's what you would call a good gay. I am a bad gay. I'm not, like, with respect to the essentials, like I own this shirt, for example. That's probably a sign of a good gay. It's bright pink. It's gonna wash me out totally on the YouTube video. And the having sex with dudes, that I've got down pat. But the stuff that comes along with it, I'm not so good. I've always been like, I don't keep track of pop divas, which apparently is quite important. I'm terrible at shopping. Shopping gives me hives. And it's particularly gay shopping, which is like you go to a big city in the gay district and there are all these high-end men's stores that know that there are gay guys who are going to shop there. And I found myself in Montreal, literally, like, I got caught in a rainstorm and had to buy clothes because I had to go out and all of everything that I was wearing was soaking wet, so had to force myself to shop at the closest shop, which is in the gay district in Montreal. And it's the kind of place where you walk in and the guy is already looking like, this is not going to work out. I tried things on, and I'm like, I'm a reasonably sized person, I like to think, but I tried on an extra large shirt. and extra large, and it was tight on me. And the guy looks at me and says, yeah, they're European sizes. And I'm like, did I miss a news item where Europe was overtaken by emaciated midgets? Like, I'm pretty sure people are just people-sized for most of the world. And I kept trying things on, and the guy just had this look at me like, you're making our clothes angry and sad, please stop. And I wish this story had this big, you know the ending of Pretty Woman, where she like eventually finds and comes by and is like, that was a huge mistake. But this, I didn't do that. I went and drank my sorrows away. Anyway, as you do in Montreal, so. Anyway, people in Montreal don't drink.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, well, moving right along, I'm going to ask the first show to come up. The first show is Phaedra's Bed. On our beautiful couch donated by the Bus Stop Theatre. So I'll turn it over to you. Tell us who you are and maybe a little bit about the show.
I'm Kim Parkhill, and Kim Parkhill.
So you're both of those things?
Yeah, no.
I'm also Kim Parkhill.
Why don't we all be Kim Parkhill tonight?
Yeah, and I, as Kim Parkhill, wrote the show and performed the show.
Yeah.
You were under some significant disguise, because I
Yeah.
saw the show earlier, and I'm pretty sure it was not you in that bed.
No, it's true. I'm not quite as beautiful as Kim. So I am not Kim Parkhill. I'm Gary Williams, and I have been working with Kim on the show.
Right.
And have been hearing about the show for a long time, as she's been conceiving it and developing it. And I was privy to some of those little, what is it? Was it English? I grew up in Germany, so I think in German sometimes. I don't know what those, when women are giving, before they give birth, they have the, what do we call it?
Contractions?
Contractions.
Okay.
So I was privy to some of those contractions moments.
Awesome.
And I was able to, and I don't know the English word for who births the baby?
The
What's that?
unlucky
The
one.
mother.
No, but like the hospital, midwife, yeah. So I was the midwife,
Oh,
right,
okay.
for this raised child.
I'm learning a lot.
I am too.
Anyway.
And tell us a little bit about the show. So I saw the show earlier, and it's, I'll say a little bit more, but it's this kind of show that's probably hard to describe in just one sentence. But what's your description of the show?
I've never had to describe it in one sentence. I don't have a PR firm. It's a lesson I've learned. I've got to get one of those. For me, it began as an exploration of a woman of age who had desires that were not socially normal, and what it would be like to have those and not be able to act on them, and the reasons why. So I wanted to explore that character and that issue, because I feel there are a lot of people who are not, in my experience, I have met a lot of people who are not living lives that they wish that they want to. So that's kind of the impetus for me.
So Phaedra is an existing character, obviously,
Yes.
because I looked her up on Wikipedia before, so I know 3 things about Phaedra probably. But
What do you know? What are the 3 things? Number 1.
God damn it! Should have written those down in my notebook. But yeah, it's certainly like the character. If you know the legend of the character, which clearly I did not, but you can kind of guess what the narrative is that the character is going through. But your show is more about seeing it, I think, through modern eyes.
Yeah. I mean, Phaedra exists from Greek mythology. Seneca and Euripides both wrote interpretations of the myth, and she's not the title character, but she definitely is one of the victims in it. It's definitely a Greek tragedy. Essentially, the original myth is that her husband Theseus has pissed off the gods, so the gods curse his new bride, Phaedra, with a lust for his son from a previous engagement. And she suffers with this, her whole marriage, and does a lot of things to try and escape it, but ultimately, when she confesses this and puts it out into the world, a tragic sequence of events happens, and a lot of people die, because it's Greek tragedy. But I also found, I wondered what it would be like to explore that character in a contemporary setting, because I feel still, at least in my age generation, which I'm in my late 40s, and certainly I grew up with this idea of what was expected for people who were heterosexual, or to be heterosexual and grow up and get married and have children. And I just really wonder about prescriptives and norms, and so I was interested in exploring that in this show.
And one of the things you'll notice when you see the show, it's like just physically, it's a very beautiful production. I feel like the look of the show is very much part of how you wanted to tell the story. I won't give away too much, but it's like the way that you've set the show up has a lot to do with how the story gets told. So what was that like? Just the setting it up and presenting it.
I was being a little bit indulgent as a creator and an artist. I spent some time training in Latvia with Sergei Ostrenko, who's a Russian choreographer. And he studied Michael Chekhov and Meyerhold. And then I also have worked with City Company of New York in the summer intensive, and that's a very physically generated place of composition and work. And I just wanted to use some of that in something that I created, but I also wanted to write. Oh golly, I love to write, don't I?
Yeah,
my dramaturg right here. So yeah, that there was an influence on how the show was going to exist and live because of the desire to have a very physical and image-rich setting.
Yeah, and it's anyway. I can't say enough. It's the way that you act in the show. It's very. It's Phaedra's bed. You're in bed, and it's beautiful. Anyway, that's just me rambling. So.
Do you hear that, Mom? I'm beautiful.
And isn't that why we all do this? And it's put on by DePopo, which is a company that anyone in Halifax theatre community will recognize. But tell us just a little bit about DePopo as a theatre company.
So DePopo Theatre is, next year, will be 10 years old. And it was, it's notoriously founded to be a little bit angry. And it was like, we're non-commercial. And so I think that it was a tripping wire for us initially, that there was a little bit of resistance. But the bottom line is that we wanted to do things that we couldn't do elsewhere. So play roles that we wouldn't normally be cast in. Approach shows from perspectives that were not commercially viable. Work in time schedules and budget situations in which we couldn't pay people full time and had to rehearse in evenings, and so we gave ourselves the freedom, I think, to play, to explore, to discover, and it led us to performing in all sorts of unusual venues and situations, not unlike the iteration of Phaedra's bed.
Yeah, I definitely would not have made this show this way if I hadn't had the 8 years of experience I had in creating collaboratively with DePopo Theatre. So it's funny how my work as an individual artist has also been influenced by the company. The company's presenting it, but we built it separately. So.
Yeah.
But however, you can separate yourself when you've been working together for 8 years. And yeah.
And DePopo has done lots of interesting, a wide range of stuff, but really it's been a big part of making theatre in Halifax interesting. So it's great to have you here. I think we'll need to move along to the next show because we're on a tight timeline today. But so thank you very much for coming. Okay. Sorry to put you in the back row there. The next show is Half Girl, Half Face. Flip to your page in mine. Okay. Oh, and sorry, I should have mentioned about Phaedra's bed. You're playing at the AGNS, at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, on the Bedford Row entrance, not the front door, but sort of the back of the Art Gallery. So easy to find when you know what you're looking for. Okay, Half Girl, Half Face. So tell us who you are and a little bit about your show.
So my name is Arlen Aguirre-Stewart. I'm from Montreal, native actress. And
I'm Zoe Irwin-Longstaff, and I wrote and directed the show.
woohoo!
Right. And tell us a little bit about what the show. It's another show that probably is hard to encapsulate in one sentence, but
I will give it off to the playwright because. Yeah.
I'm going to take more than one sentence.
Oh
but
yeah.
briefly.
Sorry, that wasn't like a restriction.
So, Half Girl, Half Face is about a young girl who's sort of astounded to discover that a picture of herself taken at a pool party has been cropped to reveal just her face and has inexplicably gone viral on the internet. So that's the sort of conceit of the show, but as Arlen can touch on, it's a lot about the politics of high school and the way girls feel surveyed by other girls and also men
And themselves.
and
as well.
themselves. Absolutely.
And how did you get the idea to put on a show like this? I'll say I saw the show earlier, and one thing that's very distinctive about the show is, it's about online interactions, and you incorporate that in the presentation of the show as well. So it's very visually striking. So just how did you start to get the idea that this is the kind of show you wanted to produce?
Well, it was definitely inspired by a lot of the really notorious cases about cyberbullying and girls really being, young women, I should say, being really policed and attacked on the internet. So the Canadian cases of Amanda Todd and Matea Parsons were obviously in the back of my mind, but also things that were going on in the United States, older things like Jessie Slaughter and also the Steubenville case. Lots of just examples of how, at the most extreme, women are being punished for things that are really personal and just they don't deserve the sort of scrutiny that they're subjected to. But more than that, it was also just really about my own experiences and the experiences of young women that I saw on Facebook who I knew when they were children and are now growing up sort of really inside the world of social media, how they were representing themselves, how they were commenting on each other, the photos they chose. It just really so seemed magnified compared to what I had even gone through a few years before. And Facebook is sort of this like embarrassing archive of who you are. So going back through things I had done and just all of that really went into it. And then you can maybe talk about the rehearsal process.
Oh, well, the rehearsal process has been interesting because Zoe's actually in Toronto and I'm in Montreal. So there's been a bit of traveling back and forth, but also we've done a lot of rehearsal via Skype. And the whole play is a YouTube video. So it's a video response that this young girl wants to or that's her name, young girl wants to bring into the world to this kind of scrutiny and also this fame that she's just recently got. So the process has been last minute, incredible, awesome, embarrassing. And yeah, I guess that's what I can say about the show.
And one of the things I really liked about the show is it's the subject matter that would allow you to write a show about a victim and have it like soaked in victimness.
Mm-hmm.
But she has lots of agency in the
Yeah.
show, and as a grown up, sort of seeing someone playing a 16-year-old dealing with and having the kind of agency a 16-year-old would have to deal with the situation was kind of shocking in a lot of moments. Like
Yeah.
I would not have dealt with maybe some of the choices that she did, but that accented a lot of the what the reality of that world is like.
Well, it was very important, at least in taking this character, that it's clear that I'm not making fun of this person. This is actually her feelings, and she's very impassioned about it, even though it might be really funny at times. But I think that was along the lines of where you were going also with the writing.
Yeah, the thing that I found so interesting, from all of this, I started watching like hours and hours of YouTube videos. Arlen and I watched a lot of them together. And so this play is as much inspired by the sort of infamous cases as just people who you would never know their names, but you type in, "Am I ugly?" into YouTube, and hundreds of videos come up of young girls sort of giving you this, anatomical breakdown of everything they hate about themselves and asking the world, like, can you tell me, am I ugly, am I not, I'm so awkward, and going on like this. And so as much as what they were saying was very disturbing, by the same token, I thought, wow, these are young women who are filming themselves and editing them and creating something and putting it out there, and this is a really oddly empowering form in its own way, that they have the access to this technology and to this platform where they can vent their frustrations and tell us about their lives totally uninterrupted. I would love to exploit that for a play.
So this is the first iteration of the show, the first production?
Yeah, it was written this year.
Wow, and do you have plans for where it's going to go from here?
We would love to see it in other festivals, I think. Yeah.
It's just because it's so technology based, I can imagine it's the kind of show that could pick up and move pretty easily.
Yeah.
You have it on a
Pretty
laptop
simple.
and
Yeah.
It's a very visually striking show, which is one of the things that really spoke to me about it. And it's as someone kind of past the age of your character, and I have to say,
I'm not 16.
right, and it's so the difference between you and your character here
Yeah. talking
talking to you now versus the way that you perform the 16-year-old is it's a world of difference. So you're very sophisticated in real life.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's great to me that I think when we as adults think about teenagers and that sort of thing, we just tend to be really simplistic about it, and the way that you found it to tell sort of the dark side, but also tell her being empowered and all of that. It's a complex way of telling that story, which is, I think, very necessary. So thank you very much for being here, and stick around just for a minute while we talk to the next show. So thank you. Half Girl, Half Face is playing at Emotion Picture Gallery, which
Last
is
show tomorrow.
the last show tomorrow. So if you're seeing this in the morning on YouTube, go immediately to Emotion Picture Gallery to buy a ticket for their last show on Emotion Picture Gallery on Bishop Street. Okay, and the final show on the list for tonight is Birdie. Welcome up, Birdie. Sorry, I had spent that whole time flipping to find you. So tell us who you are, tell us about the show.
My name is Carrie Richards. The show is the first play that I've written. I wasn't really sure it was a play until I first performed it, and then I thought, well, I guess it is. If it's in a festival and people are coming. But what am I supposed to be telling you?
Don't be nervous.
It's really fun.
It's a very friendly audience.
They're lovely.
They'll
No, seriously, what was that? What did you ask?
Just tell us a little bit about the show.
So the show started, I decided to take a writing class. I'm not a writer, but I got this email from Tarragon in Toronto, and it said 2 spots left in a playwriting class, and I thought, that sounds like fun. And then I immediately went, you're not a writer? That does not sound like fun. But I was trying to go with the first impulse, which was, okay, it sounds like fun, let's do it. So the exercise was write a monologue for a character who is the most extreme version of yourself on theatrical steroids. So the character that came out was this extreme worrier, which I'm sure you all can imagine. And what developed from it was this, like, worrying to the extreme and being mentally ill. And what started coming out of that was whether or not mental illness is hereditary. So I started sort of playing around with that, and so it really is. It's a woman who worries that she's inherited mental illness, but there's some comedy. It's not all. Anyway, yeah.
I was. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of the process for you told us about the origins, but who did you work with on that?
So I worked away and Daniel McIver was doing a play finding workshop at the Banff Center, and he's my hero. I saw Cul-de-sac, and immediately before I started acting, and it was like when I saw that play, I was like, you can do that? You can just be on stage and be by yourself and do that? So anyway, yeah, that was the idea of working with him in Banff, and he was amazing. We had to submit a couple of just like some of your writing, and the first day there were 12 of us, and he read out our pieces, and so he would. He was like reading your piece, and then he'd look over at you, and to the rest of the class, he'd be like, so that's what's going on over there. So it was crazy, heady. But he was amazing, and he said he can't teach playwriting, but he can help you find your play. And he did. So when I told him that I was interested in this mental illness and heredity, he told me to go away and research the most chilling thing I could find about that. And I found this quote that said, genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So that really stuck with me. So then he was like, okay, write a scene about your father teaching you how to shoot a gun. So it just kind of just went from there, and he helped me find my play. So yeah, it's kind of just one of those. It's non-linear and it's kind of all over the place, but this character is all over the place, and just kind of trying to figure out if she's really crazy.
I haven't.
And you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen the show, and it's still, you know, we've got lots of time left in the festival. I haven't seen everything yet. Eventually I will see. But I'm really interested, and I read, because I hadn't seen the show, I read a lot of the reviews online just to try and find out a little bit. And you've got terrific reviews from some of the other Fringe festivals that you've performed in. Where have you taken the show?
I started in Vancouver. Before the playwriting class, I got the gig. It was sort of on a dare. A friend of mine called me and she's like, I think we should apply to Vancouver. The deadline is today at 4. So I had to go, okay, all right. And I got in. So Daniel was like, that's awesome. That's what you need. You need a gig. That's what you'll, to get writing. So I went to Vancouver, and I worked with a really wonderful director who helped dramaturge as well, and thank goodness, because it was all over the place, and he was able to really help me go, oh, this scene actually should be at the front, and this scene should be at the back. And so going to Vancouver was it was a first draft. It was a little crazy. We were still kind of making changes up until the last minute. So it was shaky, but beautiful experience and wonderful. And then I just went to Winnipeg in July and had an amazing experience. It was fabulous. You should all go to Winnipeg. It was really, and good coffee, really good coffee. Yeah, Parlor. If you go, Parlor Coffee.
Winnipeg has a pretty big Fringe festival as well.
Yeah, and they love, people come with their spreadsheets. They've got 150 shows, and they're they've got it all worked out, and they stay and they talk to you, and they come to you on the street and talk to you, and it's just and other performers are amazing, and just amazing shows, and it was great. So it gave me a lot of courage to go again, and I was so happy to come to Halifax. So yeah.
And that's one of the stories that I love about what Fringe does for the theater community, because it's exactly it's low barrier to get in, whether it's randomized or it's we accept everyone, or that's part of the principles of Fringe. It's not curated to get in, and then it gives you the incentive to, okay, I put a show, it's been accepted, it's going, and that sometimes really, really cool, interesting theater happens that wouldn't otherwise happen. I'm getting the flashing light telling me that my time's limited, so I'm going to thank you for telling us about Birdie. Go see Birdie. It is at the Museum of Natural History Project Room, and you've got 6 or 7 more shows before the festival's over, so you'll have lots of opportunity to see Birdie. Thanks so much. Before we wrap, I'd like to just ask everyone what else is on your radar screen, if you want to give a shout out to any other shows that you've seen or are looking forward to. So maybe we'll start at the back and do it around this way. Gary and Kim, what's on your radar screen for Fringe?
3 quick plugs for me. One thing I have seen, Understudy, I recommend it. 2 things I haven't seen, It Trickles Down, and L.
L, a fragmentation subway waltz.
Yeah.
Definitely Ella Fragmentation Subway Waltz, and I also am looking forward to seeing your show, and Roller Derby Saved My Life, I haven't been there yet, and Love in the Time Machines.
Woo! Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, those are such great shows. I could keep going on because every time you mention a show, I want to talk more about it, but we're running out of time, so.
Most impactful show I've seen is 937. Incredible, really.
Yeah, you and I were sitting next to each
We're
other today,
crying
openly
together.
weeping. So.
No, but it's just really compelling, and I'm really excited to see all of your shows. So yeah, I'll look for that before I leave.
And Zoe?
Ella, Fragmentary Subway Waltz. I've heard a lot of really great things about it. I'm very excited to see.
And anything that's on your radar?
The Zom rom-com, I love. I smiled through the whole thing. Suicide Makes Sense. It was super fun, and I'm having a quarter-life crisis. Danielle is beautiful, and it's delightful, and charming and wonderful. And,
Okay, awesome. And I am going to put in a little plug. We've had tech helping us with the show, and I don't do theater generally, so I have no idea how to like turn on lights, or I could barely turn on the camera. So our tech, Matt, has been wonderful, and he is, yay! He's involved in a show called Human Weakness, which is it's a game show about couples breaking up. It's going to be a really cool, funny concept. It's actually happening right after we wrap Talk Show. If you want to stick around and get a ticket for that, you're welcome to. So yeah, make an effort to see Human Weakness as well. And with that, we'll wrap the final episode of.
One-woman shows.
Yeah, there were tons of one-woman shows. It's
Nine one-woman shows
Wow.
and 6 decades represented in this Fringe.
And when you say things like that, I think it's important to note too, that's not by design. It's not like the festival is going out to say this is going to be the year of one-woman shows or anything like that. That just reflects we open the doors and this is what artists are interested in right now. This is the moment. There's a lot of one-woman shows, and that's what Halifax gets to see. So I'm super happy about that. I want to, because we're on camera and it'll be my one of my only chances to do this, I want to thank some of the Fringe team that we work with. So the board of directors, Garrett Barker, Tanya Beliveau, who's also our volunteer coordinator, Tom Fitzgerald, the director of the festival, who has been absolutely amazing in restructuring the way that the Fringe Festival works, April Hubbard, Adam Reed, Lisa Rose Snow, our technical director, Rob Tracy, has been cool as a cucumber, very, very hard job. And our box office manager, Doug Pettigrew, also a super hard job. As soon as all of the shows close, his job starts and he has to count all of the money and make sure it gets back into your pockets as artists. So that's a lot of high pressure, and we super appreciate it. All of our techs and the wonderful volunteers who've been selling you tickets or taking your tickets and showing you to your seat deserve a huge round of applause. And our lovely audiences, because we get great audiences for film, for Fringe Festival. Super committed to theater in Halifax, and I love the audiences as well. So big round of applause for the whole. Thank you all for coming. Thank you on YouTube for clicking on this, and enjoy the rest of the Fringe. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kevin.
And sorry, and somebody has to cut every video, if you watch them on YouTube, ends with me saying somebody has to cut off the video.